I'm hearing news on the Twitterverse that a third Tron movie may finally be in development. Yeah, that's good news to me. And I'm also hearing that it might star Jared Leto, which I'm hearing people are actually not too thrilled about that. But guys, Jared Leto is a good actor. I think y'all are just still bitter because of his Joker. Because look at everything else he's done. He's an Oscar-winning actor. My biggest hope is that the cast of this movie returns for the threequel, because they're characters I care about, and I want to see their story continue. Tron Legacy. So Tron Legacy came out in December of 2010, so about 9.5 years ago. I was in 10th grade at the time, and it is the sequel to Disney's 1982 movie Tron. Now I will say about Tron Legacy that you don't have to have seen the first one in order to understand everything that's going on in this one. And I say that because when I first saw this movie, I hadn't seen the first one yet. In fact, honest to God, here's the true story of me seeing this movie. I saw it when it came out at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, but really the biggest reason I wanted to go see it is because there was a trailer for the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie coming out, and I was super excited for the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, so I was super excited about the trailer, so I went to go see Tron Legacy. Turns out, not only did I get a cool trailer, but I also got a pretty freaking sweet movie. So in Tron Legacy, it takes place some 20 years after the first one. The main character is Sam Flynn. He's the son of Kevin Flynn, who was the main character in the first movie. Kevin Flynn was the CEO of Encom, which was his big video game company, so Sam Flynn is a legacy child. But Kevin Flynn disappeared back in the 80s, and Sam finds out that his father's been trapped in this world that he's created called the Grid. It's this video game world where all the citizens identify as programs because they're not real people, they're bits of data in a computer. And through a series of events, Sam Flynn finds himself suddenly in this world where he reconnects with his father, and together they have to get out of there now. And now we have our pretty sweet Tron adventure. I watched this movie last night for the first time in a few years, and it's still pretty cool. It's not completely perfect, there are some flaws I found, but I feel like the filmmakers of this movie knew that. They weren't going for Amadeus. The Tron movies are just meant to be fun, and they are quite fun. Sam Flynn is played by Garrett Hedlund, and he's a really good protagonist to follow throughout the movie, because he is kind of carrying the weight of the name Flynn on his shoulders. I feel like he didn't really want that, so he's got kind of a chip on his shoulder. He's kind of a rogue dude. He breaks the rules because his father's name is such a big deal. And while he's in the Grid, he's introduced to this warrior chick named Quora, played by Olivia Wilde, who's pretty hot in this movie, yeah. The coolest thing about her character is her fascination with the outside world, since she's from the Grid. So when she sees Kevin and Sam Flynn reuniting and talking about the outside world, she's watching with this curious look in her eye. I just like seeing that. But then she can throw down when she needs to. The action scenes are really cool. I'll get to them later though, because I'm still on the characters. We have Jeff Bridges returning from the first Tron movie to play Kevin Flynn again in this one. And this is a man who has been trapped in this digital world for 20 years. He's gonna be a little out of it. I mean, he's not completely insane, but you can tell he hasn't learned anything new about our outside world since the 80s, so he's still trapped mentally in the 80s, or maybe even the 70s, because you see he's like meditating and talking about his Zen thing, biodigital jazz, man. Which I like that though, he was written really well. It's a nice touch that he's been mentally trapped in the 80s since he hasn't had any contact with the outside world in 20 years. Now, this world of the Grid has actually been under the rule of Clue, who is a program created by Kevin Flynn in his image to create the perfect system, the perfect utopia for the Grid, since he didn't really know any better at the time. So now Clue has taken over like Lotso took over Sunnyside, and he's running the place with an iron fist. Yeah, he's the villain. And he's a really good villain too, although when this movie first came out, I heard a lot of people saying, yeah, the digital de-aging doesn't look that good, because he's supposed to look like a younger Jeff Bridges. And when this first came out, I was in high school, so I didn't really know any better. I was like, nah, he looks fine. But now that it's 10 years later and I'm watching it again, I actually do see what people were talking about. The problem with the de-aging with Clue is that it's not that he doesn't look like a real human being, because he does. The problem is that he doesn't look like a younger Jeff Bridges. Like, you compare the two Jeff Bridges characters in this movie, they don't look a thing like each other at all. There was one scene actually towards the end where I could tell, I'm like, yeah, that's CGI young Jeff Bridges face. What can I say? Disney's de-aging technology had not yet reached the heights that it's at now. But other than the look of him, he is actually a really good villain because he's obsessed with perfection, which, as we all know as human beings, is an impossible thing to achieve. But it is what he was built to obtain, so it just kind of messed him up in the head. It makes sense. But of course, the big selling point of this movie is the visual effects. The world of the Grid is so cool, dude. I mean, it's a very blue world where like blue and orange are the only colors that exist in this world. Orange being the color of the bad guys and Clue and his army, and blue being the color of everything else. But blue being my favorite color, I have no problem with that. And the action scenes, now let's talk about them. Because when Sam first gets to the Grid, he's thrown into these games, these disc battles where they fight with these discs that they carry with them at all times, and they're fighting each other with them. They've thrown them like frisbees. But of course, the cooler action scene there is right afterwards words, the light cycle battle? Yeah, man. I would love to do that someday. Ride around on this light cycle and try to de-res my opponents. That's a really cool scene in this movie. But then, after those action scenes are done, the movie does kind of slow down for a bit. In fact, there are a couple places in this movie where I felt it slowed down just a little too much. Like, it's so exciting, you're having so much fun with these action scenes, and then Sam finally reconnects with his father again, and there's a lot of exposition, you know, explaining why he disappeared in this grid, why he was trapped here for 20 years, who Cora is, what her significance is to the whole story, how Clue took over the grid. It's a lot of explaining and storytelling, and I get it, there are important things to know for the story, but it does feel like it slows the movie down a little bit. I just can't deny that. But then the movie will pick up again with a cool action scene, and I'll be right back in it. And one of the strongest selling points of this movie is the soundtrack. All the music and the score and everything was composed by Daft Punk. Daft Punk! You know, that techno duo that's coming to my house? My house. Everyone knows Daft Punk. So yeah, you can bet the music in this movie is very techno, really solid beats in there. And yeah, this soundtrack is completely awesome. Really catchy techno beats during the action scenes. And then during the slower parts, it's still techno, but it's that zen kind of techno, you know? Kind of like the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack, or the Portal 1 soundtrack, where it's like these long synthesized notes, those it's so cool. And I am super glad that Daft Punk said they would return if they did a third Tron movie, because I can't see anyone else scoring Tron at this point. I can't. Who, Skrillex? No. It has to be Daft Punk. They just made such a distinct sound for this movie. I love it. Another thing that people might complain about with this movie is that it's really lighthearted, and yeah, I can't disagree with that, honestly. It is kind of shallow, but I don't really have a problem with that, because it's a fun Disney movie that's just there to be fun. Again, it's not supposed to be Amadeus. They're like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, where they're just there to be fun, but the good kind of fun. Enjoyable with good characters, and really well choreographed action scenes, and awesome music. Tron Legacy is a very enjoyable movie. It's not the deepest movie ever, and it does kind of slow down in parts, but the characters are very well written, the world is very engaging, the visual effects are really good in this movie, actually. Which is why I'm saying a third Tron movie would be so cool now, because in 10 years' time, visual effects have gotten even better. I heard some potential title names floating around, Tron Ascension, Tron Destiny. Both of those sound like pretty cool names, actually. So I'm down for either, or something entirely new. I don't care. Just as long as it's still fun, and as long as Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde return. Because again, I like their characters a lot, and I want to see where their story goes after Tron Legacy. It does kind of leave it open at the end, so I want to see where that goes. So Tron Legacy, have you seen it? What do you think about it? What do you think about it compared to the original Tron? And what are your thoughts on a potential third Tron movie? Don't lie, you want it to happen. Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.